Hello and welcome to the Warrior Soul podcast. This is episode 21. I am Chris Albert and I'm here with Andrew Marr. And we just had an absolutely amazing interview with Dr. Anthony Beck. If you don't know who Dr. Beck is, Dr. Beck's been working with elite performers for a long time. He's coached a lot of world champion Spartan race athletes. He's worked with a lot of elite special forces operators, and he came on here today to talk to us, to give us some gems of advice for all of you out there who are looking to take your game to the next level, looking to protect yourselves against some of the environmental factors that exist out there. And we got a lot of tips for all you military folks, those of you who are still in and those of you who've gotten out, just on improving yourself, improving your life by knowing your body a little bit better. What'd you think of the episode, Andrew?
The episode is going to speak for itself very, very shortly. I think the audience, you listening to this right now, you're going to be able to take away some of the information, all of the information, whatever it is you want, apply it, and see an immediate benefit in your life. What Dr. Beck is renowned for is identifying things at an individual basis, on an individual level, that are blocking us up. And he has a specific order of operations called the Balanced Protocol, where he looks at nutritional factors. He looks at stressors that are in your life, stressors via the light, air, sound, electromagnetic frequency, water, and food. And if you're thinking, well, what's the big deal about all of those things? How is that going to affect me positively or negatively? Listen on into the podcast. You're going to find some amazing information. And a side note, I first met Dr. Beck. Well, I first heard about him through the grapevine when I was still active being an operator. And he was kind of a well-known guy that was able to help high-performing individuals perform at a higher level. And so that immediately piqued my interest and wanted to know what this guy was all about. Fast forward about a year later to, I think, about 2014, we were at a conference, a Special Operations Command conference, medical conference there in Tampa. And it assembled some of the who's who from the nonprofit world, who's who from alternative treatment modalities that were showing tremendous benefit and kind of being able to brief some of the command about what was working and why it was working. And that was my first exposure to Dr. Beck, because that's when he was briefing high-level officials at SOCOM and letting them have it, telling them how they were putting out a broken product and they were not looking to solve solutions. They were only looking to treat symptoms. And I was like, who is this guy? I love what he's saying. And turned out that was the famous Dr. Beck. And so you guys are really going to enjoy this podcast. Dr. Beck has a lot of energy, a lot of information, and I think, that is what's going to bleed out as you listen to it.
Yeah, I think the big message here is that a lot of us who suffer from certain chronic ailments, we chalk it up to genetics, or we chalk it up to fate. And we think that we just pulled the short straw, that we're resigned to whatever that fate is. And from Dr. Beck's perspective, you realize that you do have more control. You do have more control over your situation. And it's really in getting to know and understand your body, and getting to know and understand the impact of your environment on your body, the food you eat on your body, and a whole host of other factors. And I really like his individualized approach. That there are no blanket swaths of information here. What he's done in his work is he's demonstrated that everybody's different. Everybody's going to respond to different things. Everybody's going to respond to different diets differently. I'm a fat burner. I am a ketogenic guy. Andrew here is a carb burner, and it works. What we do works for us. And that's the type of approach that I think needs to be utilized more in health and wellness.
Absolutely. So I guess, Chris, without further ado, here you go.
Let's get into it. This is Chris Albert here with Andrew Marr, and we are privileged today to have Dr. Anthony Beck. Dr. Beck works with elite Spartan athletes. He's a consultant for a number of elite operators in the special operations community, and he is a medical consultant for the Warrior Angels Foundation. He's also the designer of a product called Oral IV, which is some pretty awesome hydration technology that is really popular in the OCR community right now. Dr. Beck, welcome.
Hey, man. What's happening, fellas? My brothers.
Dr. Beck is actually hilarious, and we've been joking around for the past few minutes. Dr. Beck, I'm so impressed with your beatboxing ability.
Now, listen, here's the thing, though. The skill really comes when we all do it and we get into harmony, like row, row, row your boat.
We're going to work on that.
See, that put me on the spot for a little beatboxing.
We're going to be a beatboxing trio on the next one.
All right, cool.
I love where you're taking.
Put me on the spot, man. I was like, I'm going to show y'all what's up.
That's awesome. I just did the super serious intro. And then we bring in the beatboxing, and then Andrew puts the kibosh on it. It's okay.
That's right. Well, the thing is, man, all that stuffy lab coat, stethoscope, demigod, kind of medical persona that's out there does not work, especially with the military folks. You guys are you better check the bullshit card at the office door, and I've learned that. So. I just be me, man. I'm Southern. I grew up in North Carolina, graduated high school in Fayetteville. Yes, sir.
Oh, nice.
You sure did. And let me tell you, the second time I met Dr. Beck was in Fayetteville. For you guys that don't know what that is, that's Fayetteville, North Carolina. And we were going to visit the Special Forces, sniper and close quarters combat facilities there and get some demonstrations. And so we were there with some other nonprofits and some other players in that industry. It was kind of just like a thank you and a give back for the work that we've been doing. So we're getting picked up by a van. It's going to be a number of current operators, veteran operators, medical physicians, this, that, and the other. Dr. Beck's in the front seat. Me and my brother Adam get in there, and Beck is just dropping just bombs on people, making fun of people, letting them have it, talking about how stupid something is and this and that is. And I was like, this guy, my brother, is like, this guy's hilarious. Is he a SEAL? Is he a Green Beret? I'm like, no, that's one of the doctors.
Man. I just polish y'all's boots. I'm just a boot polisher, man. That's all I do. I serve.
Yeah, so Dr. B was up there mixing it up, not worried about what anybody thought, and that's one of the many reasons I love him, because he's just authentic and real and has been inspirational in helping me to turn my life back around, and it's done through a very, I don't want to call it simple, but evidence-based process that he's come up with that is revolutionizing the way we look at health and wellness, which is the opposite of what the current system is pushing out, which is system predicated on sickness, And so, Dr. Beck, how did you get into kind of finding in your balanced protocol and getting that set up?
Well, it kind of, I don't know how far to go back, but it was one of those kind of things to where, and I talk about this in a couple other venues, and I like to go back to, of course, my early childhood in North Carolina in Fayetteville and stuff like that, growing up around the military. My dad was in the Navy, things of that nature. And then Top Gun came out, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a Navy pilot. Right? And so
I'm Tom Cruise, and you're Goose, though. That's how it goes.
Hey, that's fine. I'll backseat to you anytime, man. I'll Rio it up. So I went to Old Dominion University. I was a ROTC boy. I was there in that program and did that for a year and a half, 2 years, and then I was like, man, I don't want to show up to drill all the time and do this kind of fun stuff. And then I talked to the Marine major who was there, and he's like, Beck, I got a better program, but it's on the download. And he says, how would you like to just go to Quantico over the summers? And I was like, Semper Fi. What do I do? so I switched over to Marine Corps option and stuff like that. And that lasted about another year and a half until this blonde-haired, blue-eyed chick just walked up into my apartment down in Virginia Beach, and that changed everything, right? So I was up for service selection 6 months out, and I was going to, fly me some Hornets, and I was all down for the count, but boy, had to change my mojo. So with that, changed my course of education and stuff like that. So I had to say, well, man, where do I need to go from there? Well, I put myself through college working in food and beverage management. So I was a chef, worked at Virginia Beach Resort and Conference Center and the Cavalier Hotel, that kind of fun stuff down there. And I used to cater the SEAL team reunions and stuff over there and help them with that over there at Little Creek. So I love the military kind of thing, but I wasn't going to be able to serve because my new chica wasn't down for that plan. She grew up in Virginia Beach and how the place turned into a ghost town different times of deployments. I said, I know how that is. That's how Fayetteville was when the 82nd got out of there. So I had all this stuff. I'm like, what do I do? And I was like, well, you know what? I love fitness. Was hanging out with you guys and training and doing the O courses and that kind of fun stuff. And I'm like, well, I switched over. So I opted into, sports med, exercise, phys, study. And so I said, well, I'm going to go there. But then even with that was still a little too goofy. So through various iterations, I said, well, my last year at Old Dominion, I got rear-ended. And my back went out of place. And so my mom, she was a little bit of a Fruity Biscuits, metaphysical, Edgar Cayce Foundation, Virginia Beach, Shirley MacLaine, and, UFOs in the mountains of Sedona kind of chick. May she rest in peace. I love my mama. And the thing about it is I was like, oh, man. She goes, well, here, you got to go to this chiropractor. So I went to this chiropractor, and I cannot remember the doctor's name, but she was every bit of 6'2", 210, big lady. She put me on that drop-down table and pow, just put it all back to love. And I was like, huh. Now that's what I'm talking about. But I said, you know what? And didn't want to. So I started getting these kind of things. And then my mom, her health and her story and stuff. I'm like, well, I didn't really want to do that whole, hospital thing and stuff of that nature. So then I kind of went through my educational thing through, training in naturopathy and oriental medicine and all kinds of fun stuff, and then on to functional medicine. So big iteration that took my life story through knowing that there's got to be a systemized approach. There has to be a way to, okay, what's the mission? How do we gather the intel? How do we apply that? How do we build the teams? How do we develop systems? Everybody's got their MOS. We all know what we got to do, but everybody knows. And so I just really started thinking of the body in that fashion. And then I was like, okay, well, food's got to come into play, but then there's some structural components that has to come into play. And then there's some environmental components that come into play. And I was like, well, medicine, at large doesn't have that. So I didn't go that traditional route. But even through, training through that I've gone through professionally through different medical schools and stuff, I still realized that it really came down to a very limited framing of what was going on. It was very pathogenesis as opposed to salutogenesis, or where does, health come from? And I realized no one's studying healthy people and saying, hey, what are you doing? They're always waiting for it's a sick person or something broke, and then you name it, blame it, claim it, and tame it. So I started to think, well, there's got to be a way to figure this out. Let's recognize some patterns. So after seeing thousands of patients, I began to see these patterns unfold. And it kind of set what I call the order of operations of how we should go through things. Because out there, even and I'm not an alternative medicine guy, right? But in the different terms that are out there, they will really use a different approach, but it's really kind of the same approach, right? So in other words, I say the medicine cabinet is different. So people go, oh man, I don't want the antibiotics and the steroids and the psychotropics and all that other kind of fun stuff, but I want to do some herbs and homeopathics and vitamins. Well, you're still treating a disease. You're still treating something that really doesn't exist. It's based upon a checklist. And so when I really put my mind to the person and what made them uniquely you, right? I mean, not everybody's going to carry the same gear going into combat. Why? Because like my little, 165-pound ass is not going to be toting Gustavs and all that kind of stuff and hanging out with y'all. So I realized that every portion of the body had a different pattern. and a portion that they played. And I just began to recognize the entire person, what made them uniquely them, where are they from, where did they grow up with, what's their history of medication, history of, of their past, not just history of present illness, right? So where I'm going with this is it was a big iteration that I didn't really realize until it kind of manifests, because I didn't really come up with balanced protocol, like, well, what would be a cool way of, whatever. And I go, no, this is the pattern. I usually realize that people had these multifaceted stories of their lifestyle, their environment, their genetic uniqueness. All these things were into play. So why would we be so arrogant is to just treat, chronic, disease states like diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis or allergies or migraines or back pain with like it's an entity. It's not. It got there in a certain way. And so I began to say, well, what do I need to do to help correct some of these things? And it presented what we call in the 2-3-5-8 framework of balanced protocol, the two questions. It's really simple. What do we got to add? What do we got to take away? It's like Dr. Obvious, right? So, okay, well, that's okay, great. But then once you start asking those questions, you got to apply things in the right way, right? You have to take that intel and you have to figure out, okay, well, what has to come first, right? And so I realized that before I started doing any type of detoxes or balancing hormones or doing things like that, it really made sense and got the greater results when we applied the rule of rigor, which is to nourish the patient, build them up. And that doesn't mean just give them a whole bunch of, raw food and, juices and vitamin pills. It's like, how do we nourish their mind? How do we nourish their environment? What air they breathe, what water they drink, what light they're exposed to, what electromagnetic fields are in play, right? What sound they're around. All these things are energetic components. So it set the pathway. But then I started okay, well, I know what questions to ask. I know what kind of things to go through, what order to apply them. But what are we looking for? And I said, well, we can really simplify things down to causes of disease to really only a handful, literally 5 things. Nutrient deficiencies, right? We know that B12 can create all kinds of problems from fatigue to neurological problems. So could a whole bunch of other nutrients, right? Heck, a zinc deficiency can do it. A B6 deficiency can do that. But then the number 2 are stressors. These are energetic components from the environment, right? So we know air, we use it to generate electricity and energy because it's energy. Light is energy. Water is energy because, those are 3 forms of power generation. So they are energy. Food and electromagnetic fields. So all these things are stressors on a person. A stressor, not stress, not just, 99 problems, but, drill sergeant ain't one. So the thing about it is you got to think in the situation where, it comes down to stressors. That's part of the thing. Then there's microbes. We've all known that microbes, they cause disease, right? Neurological symptoms and fatigue and different things like that. Same as a nutrient deficiency. We know allergens, number 4, those can lend to disease when you lose tolerance to certain molecules in the environment. And then lastly, toxins, all the way from, heavy metals, that little lovely, gas cocktail you guys breathe on a regular basis. I learned that when I was in freaking Reigns 38. That was crazy. All those heavy metals, and they disrupt stuff. So those 5 things of nutrient deficiency, stressors, microbes, allergens, and toxins, all diseases, every single one of them is going to be caused by one or multiple of those things. That's it. So, that created those 5 pathways.
Those 5 pathways, Dr. Beck, we're saying all these other symptoms we can trace back to one of those 5 areas in your work.
That's exactly right. Now, people say, well, what about inflammation? Well, inflammation caused by what? A nutrient deficiency, a stressor, a microbe, an allergen, or a toxin. You got to go deeper. When we talk about the vernacular of root cause, most people are really kind of stuck in the trunk, not really down in the soil. We got to go deeper. And people say, well, what about genetics? And I goes, genes are not your destiny. They just get information from the outside environment. That's all they are.
Right.
You can't just go on, well, it runs in the family.
It seems like there's a lot of people out there in the fitness/wellness community who take one of these things and they make them their flag. And
correct.
It's nutrient deficiency, or it's microbes, or it's allergens. And so it's refreshing to see this done in a complete package.
Right.
But I'm noticing here is that you have toxins last, and I see a lot of people do a detox is one of the first things they do, and that so many people are marketing detoxes as a product. What's your take on this, and why is it last in your protocol?
That's a fabulous question, because in the 2-3-5-8 framework, the 3 stands for the 3 phases, which are nourish, balance, purify. So deep purification, detox, it is necessary. Oh, absolutely. But one of the things you have to realize is that, number one, the body detoxes all the damn time, constantly. Think about it. We have tears, we have boogers, we have earwax, we have sweat, we have pee, we have poop, we have vaginal secretions, right? All kinds of ways. Well, whatever your plumbing is. My point is, all we do is just excrete. We're just trying to constantly get rid of stuff, boogers and mucus and everything like that. So the body can do it. But here's the key, though. It's all nutrient dependent. In detoxification, we really have what's called phase 1 and phase 2. There's a phase 3, but I won't get into that rabbit hole tumble. But phase 1 is governed by something called cytochromes, the cytochrome P450s. These are hardwired, genetically influenced enzymes, okay? Cytochrome P450s. They're called P450s because their maximum absorption of light is at 450 nanometers, which is a very cool clue when it comes to diseases, but we'll maybe tickle on that later. But the thing is the cytochromes are nutrient dependent. If they don't have nutrients, they can't do their job, right? It's like you guys putting a weapon in my hand and saying, okay, you pull the trigger and bang, and something comes out the end and you can do something. And I go, well, there's a big difference between my skills versus y'all's skills, right? So you can't just put the same equipment in there and expect it to work without all the auxiliary things that work it into it, okay? So the point is that the detox requires a presupposition of nutrients being replete or available enough. If your stock isn't there, when you start to induce them by doing different things, all the way from fasting to calcium EDTAs and juicing and things like that, you're basically forcing performance on a weakened system. So there's a big matzo ball floating out there that if you just start detoxing, that the body's going to magically just do it. You can't assume that, okay? You will push stress on something and it will make it worse. And then when something comes from phase 1, it becomes what we call intermediate metabolites. They take them from non-polar fat soluble in storage form and then brings them to a form that we can use. And then now it has to be taken through phase 2, which is highly nutrient dependent. This is the processes of glucuronidation, acetylation, methylation, all the Asians, right?
Right.
Those need nutrients. So again, if you don't have enough of those nutrients, you're going to now have these molecules that you pulled out of storage, right? And go, it's like remodeling the house, and you go, oh man, I'm just going to start tearing out some drywall and some lath board and throw all that stuff. And your wife's like, well, hold on a second, did you arrange for a garbage pickup in the front, one of those dumpsters? Like, oh no, I just got to tearing out. Well, then now you have to move it again, and you create more problems when you start doing detox. So the reason I'm using these examples is because I want people to understand that detox is important. The body does it all the time. If you're going to induce it, especially in a person who has health complaints, they're already weakened. They already, by default, will have nutrient deficiencies, will already have microbes, allergens, and toxin load that they're not able to deal with on their own. And now you're forcing those pathways of induction that it's not ready to handle. So we can get to it, but imagine this. If you just go on the intelligence that our divinely created bodies and systems have, if you give it the nutrients, change the environment in which it's operating in, it will do it on its own. Now, sometimes it will only go so far, and we do need to induce it. But detoxification as a starting point is ridiculous. It just is going to, more times than not, create more havoc, because you create these intermediate metabolites that are 1,000 times more reactive species that the body has to deal with. It's better if you just would have left it there. You know, it's like on TV and somebody gets shot and everybody goes, quick, we got to get the bullet out. Have you noticed that? It's like, you know, what makes you think that you need to pull that shit out now? How about you stop the bleeding, compress the stuff and whatever, and then let's do it the right way. So it's see these patterns, they play out in our lives, but yet in certain systems, you know, of care, they don't apply those.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so we want to do it, but build yourself up first. No one goes and just all of a sudden starts flipping the big tires. We start with the little lawnmower tires, one-handed,
Sure.
Then we work our ways up to the big ones, right? Especially like shot putting and stuff.
That's kind of where I met Dr. Beck. I was doing everything I thought that I could do positive in my life, but I was still having a lot of issues. Like I couldn't understand. I was gaining weight, and I'm eating the ketogenic diet, and I'm lifting how I've always lifted, but all of a sudden, I can't understand what's going on. I'm having problems with energy. And so that's when I started to understand what he was really preaching, and starting with nutrition. And we had to look at an individualized approach to realize, what, the ketogenic diet is neither good or bad. But for me right now, with the way my system is reacting, it's not good for me. So based on lab analysis, we know we need to go in a different direction. And that's the individualized approach, right, Dr. Beck, that's going to make the difference.
And that is that you got to gather intel first. You just don't come in guns blazing, or you'll have collateral damage, right? So we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and we quantify the person. There's a big movement now, right, as we talk about biohacking. Well, doing something in the absence of personal clinical data, that's not biohacking. That's handfuls of darts at the dartboard at once, hoping it to stick, the shotgun approach. Pray and spray, that, and this is why you get mixed bag results, right? Hunting bunnies with nuclear bombs, you'll get the bunnies, but the forest doesn't look so swell. So we want to really make sure that everybody first and foremost realize that the vast majority of programs or influences out there, not with any malice, not with any ill intent, but they try to be homogenized so that way they can cover a broad populace. Because we all want to exert our impact. We all want to help change lives for the better, right? We want to give them things. But you've got to do the right thing for the right person at the right time for the right amount of time. Nothing is also static. As the environment changes, as our light cycles changes, as the food and the world around us in our environment changes, so does our metabolism. We are intimately attached to Mother Nature's tuning fork. And so we have to realize that you can't just always train the same. You can't always eat the same. Now, that's for you once you figure that out, much less just tell everybody you should intermittent fast, ketogenic, or vegan or whatever. All of those are options. Absolutely. They're all tools in the box, but you got to try it on. You got to know where you are to get the maximized results. We've all tried to unscrew a light switch cover with a butter knife. I mean, it works, that little damn screw, right? You could do it, especially, you guys and you operators and stuff, y'all like MacGyver and shit. But the thing is that, but wouldn't you really just rather have the latest and greatest? Wouldn't you rather just have the tools, something that's made for the job? So I just ask people to apply that same pattern to themselves in their life and their health quest.
So what kind of data do you check on your patients, or say if you're working with an operator, what types of data would you collect on them? What and how often would you collect that data?
Well, that's kind of that's a little question needs a big answer. So I'll try to not who me long-winded what. Yeah, just laugh in my face, guys.
10 words or less.
10 words or less. No, the thing is what we want to do is there is a certain assessment, right? Just like there's basic training. You got to understand that this is how you tie your boots. This is how you put on your stuff. This is called a rifle. This is a round. You start off with and you build from there, right? You got to be, everything is a didactic way. So there is a certain biological terrain that we need to assess up front. Now, we know that we all need to eat. And sticking with the pattern of nourishment, well, you want to assess that. You got to realize if we're going to use quote unquote food as medicine, you better know how the body relates to food. So one of the first things we want to do is know what your metabolic type is. Yes, it's a true premise. There's tons of data to support that, and I've used it tens of thousands of times, and it's actually clear. Now you can do it through questionnaire, you can do it through different urine metabolites. You can even do it through the hair. I choose to use it with hair. So by looking at what the mineral status is in the hair with a proper sample and lab, you can tell if how a person is using energy, both quality and quantity. Because the minerals are what move the molecules. That's the whole reason what we do is we have to think of food as electrons, right? food has to come into the body and then become us. So our body has to take it through a process of making it not a grass-fed bison steak, not organic carrot, right? Whatever it is we consume, a little pate, no matter what it is, it has to cease being that and then become us. That takes a huge amount of energy. All right. Like we got to spend a whole bunch of energy to mine coal so we can burn coal to make electricity and fuel, so that way we can make more. So we got to start with food. And so the first assessment is finding out what their metabolic type is, so that way we know how to combine their macros based upon their current metabolic engagement. Okay. Some people, due to a multiple factorial things, will preference fats as a primary fuel source. Some people will carbohydrate. It's not the dogma that everybody needs to low carb and go high fat and ketogenic because of all the benefits for that. That's great. But you got to understand, there's a ton of people that you will literally, and this is a military doctor term, batshit crazy if you feed them the wrong combination of fuel. Okay? It's like the kerosene lamp. Too much wick, burns black. Not enough wick, no light. Dial it in perfect, burns clean. How can the same fuel have two different outcomes? Because you change the environment and how it's mixed, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing when it comes to gunpowder and primers. It's not all the same. How much of a bang you want, right? What kind of stuff? Not that I'm an explosive guy like my brother here, but the thing about it is I've read a couple comic books. Yeah. So the thing is I try to use these examples that are pertinent to the audience. So I want you to understand that your fuel mixture needs to be correct for what your current terrain is. You're going to operate different in Siberia than you are in Panama, plain and simple. Okay, so you got to know that. So I do that by here. So question number one. Number two, then now we're starting to put food in. Well, we can't presuppose that everything that is organic, grass-fed, blessed by the Dalai Lama, whatever, is healthful for you. Just like you can be reactive to the famous ones, which are kind of silly, gluten and eggs and dairy and citrus and nuts and all that kind of fun stuff. You can be just as immunologically loss of tolerance to avocado, to coconut, to turmeric, to hemp seed. Absolutely. See? So just to put everything into all these main ones that we are, I get that. There's some premise there, right? It's kind of common. I agree. But shouldn't you just test? Wouldn't you just like to know? Because, man, I'd hate to just take somebody off of eggs and all the wonderful things that it gives, right? Same thing when it comes to hemp. Same thing when it comes to coconut. Same thing when it comes to avocado. Here you could be spinning your wheels, creating nutrient deficiencies, an allergen, right? And problems, and you're not healing the patient. You're wondering why. Why? Because every day you're sitting there doing it, right? It's like the military. Well, why am I having all these problems? Well, you keep, sucking in a lovely little cocktail of cadmium and mercury and arsenic and lead and all that kind of crap. Listen, those are bigger than any damn hormone benefit than wherever. You got to add and take away. Remember, 2 questions. Mm-hmm. So we want to take a look at food reactivity. So I find out what their metabolic type is so I can feed them their combination of macros at a given time. We retest that about every 3 months just to make sure, because sometimes you'll shift gears out of slow oxidation and fast oxidation. Okay. Glucogenic imbalance versus ketogenic imbalance. Those are the term. And then number 2, we want to make sure that we test for a very large battery of commonly consumed foods to make sure we're not in a case where we have immunological tolerance being lost to those foods. So that's where we start. Now that's the down and dirty of it. Of course, insurance doesn't pay for those 2, right? But they're relatively inexpensive. We're talking, sub $900 or about $1,000. But then we go deeper from there. So the first thing is when we want to concentrate on low barriers to entry, and feeding the patient and getting their nutrition. So that's the thing of it. People go, well, what about all these other tests like, urine organic acids and SpectraCell and RBC minerals and things like that? Well, that's all well and good. And you could test a whole bunch of stuff, right? But you got to be careful about not over testing all things just because it's cool and groovy, because what you're going to be doing in adjusting their environment and their food selection criteria and that kind of fun stuff, you're going to get a lot of downstream for free. So it doesn't have to be tested up front. Does that make sense? Absolutely. So I like to add that in whenever I get that question, because, man, we can over quantify. So it comes back to balance, making sure we're looking at the right things at the right time for the right person, but not overly doing it. Right.
Dr. Beck, there's so much information that I want to get to the listeners through your balanced protocol, and I want to take it all in step. But today, with what we were able to do, what you ever helped me realize was the environmental factors in my house that I had no idea was serving as a detriment, not only to myself, but my family, via light, via air, via water, via non-native electromagnetic frequencies. Can we just touch on those real quick and talk about some ways that we can offset that right now to make some improvements, some general improvements in our lives?
Oh, absolutely. And that is what it is. It really all boils down to the environment. Again, let's go back to this thing I want to keep driving home is pattern recognition, right? You can take a human and you can put them in a loving environment and they're going to thrive. You put them in a non-loving environment and they're going to want to go blow things up for people because that's what they were taught. You could put somebody into a racial situation and they're going to learn to hate. You're going to put them in a loving thing, it's going to be a different thing. So we are a byproduct of our environment, right? Our experiences determine our perceptions. Perceptions govern behavior. And that applies as above, it is below. So same thing for the body. We have to realize that we are a byproduct of our environment, taking in information and energetics. And that starts with all 6 of the environmental inputs, which is air, water, light, sound, non-native EMF, and food. It's all information. It's all frequency. It's all vibration. It's all light. Now, light is a separate category, but when it all comes down to it, that's what it is. It's information. We know that air is there. We don't have to see it, but it has information in it, right? All the way from good stuff, right, to sea breeze, ionic, minerals and stuff like that, and microbiomic stuff. But then it also has mycotoxins, right, from mold. It's also got heavy metals from, sending, rounds down range, right? So air is a component. Same thing in your house. Breathing in microbes and bugs and things like that. Your body has to deal with it. That's why we have boogers, right? I mean,
so we shouldn't eat those, just to clarify.
Yeah, so no booger consumption.
Okay.
Right. So which goes into, of course, now, making sure that you keep your air clean and fresh, air out the house, open up the windows. I don't care what temperature it is. Get your oxat up, right? Clear out that carbon monoxide, clear out the radon, let it breathe, man. We all feel, when we take our drawers off, we let it breathe. It all feels good. Your cells in your body needs that too. So then the next thing is don't drink your pee. I don't care where you're at this, right? The point is, your water has to be clean and fresh and healthy. It is an informatic also, okay? Our bodies are nothing but DC electric current, right?
Right.
Tuned to the Earth's frequency. And water is the shuttle for the movement of these electrons along with certain fatty acids and stuff. So your water has to be dead on balls healthy, right? Not electrocuted and alkalized, right? Not, just tap water because they say it's good, not through a Brita filter, not the little one on your refrigerator. You got to take the crap out of it, man, because remember what we do. We poop and pee in our water, send it to them, and they send it back to us. We can't assume that it's all coming out, okay? And the stuff that's in there, and it's not. So you want to hydrate the body, and you want to have good, fresh, clean, structured water because the body is an aqueous environment, not 75%, 99%. Right? It's
Dr. Beck, what's the difference between structured and unstructured water for the audience if they might not know that?
Well, structured water is basically water that's been organized. So that way, if you take a look at, we call water H2O, not H2O, it's H3O2. There's no molecule of H2O that exists by itself. It always comes with a homeboy, okay? It's got its battle buddies, and they all come together. Now, when they make the phalanx, right? If they march into combat in order and in structure, shields up, spears out, boom, far more powerful together. Water is the same way. If you have water organized and structured into clusters and organized, it can do its job of transferring of energy and being that dipole battery to the body. So when water is organized, and it can be done through electromagnetic fields, which is why non-native ones disrupt fluid metabolism in the body. It can be done by light. UV light organizes water, right? Why we don't want to electrocute it, right? You can push sound at a certain frequency and structure water. You can spin it with movement and it can structure it because it's just based upon its atomic nature. So structured water is water that's been organized into a tighter, more organized lattice that allows it to do and perform its function better, right? So air, water, light. Now, that's the other big thing is light is huge. All life depends upon it, period. Right? Light is a huge spectrum all the way from, the left to the right. We just see the visible spectrum. That's like the distance of a hair compared to the height of your body, right? There's a lot of information in light, and those electrons come in and they signal our body to perform certain functions. It's called the photoelectric effect, right? Those electrons from the sun hit us and do different things. We need infrared light. We need UV light, right? We need all of those. But then we're in all these boxes, our houses, our cars, our work, and we have all this artificial spectum of light. And people say, well, how can light really play? Well, light is information, right? We burn light to CDs, put information on it, transfer it to another machine, and it reads the same light and has the same story to tell. Isn't that amazing? So light is very powerful, and it signals us. So in this artificial blue light, 450 nanometer cell phone light that we're looking at through our iPads or on digital devices, and Lord help us. I'm going to go sidebar here, guys. This new virtual reality thing where people are taking your Samsung, I'll blow up Galaxy on your head, or your iPhone and sticking it next to your frontal lobe with that light and then engaging all that. We're getting ready to really have the new tobacco like nobody's business. What a bunch of zombies. Right? It's crazy. So you got to be careful with light coming in the eyeballs because it's going to tell your brain through the suprachiasmatic nucleus to do a whole bunch of stuff. It's all your clock genes. They all run on light. The other thing is your body sees it too. That's another surface. So then you got everybody putting those little Fitbits on and those little things like that with that little green light on the background sticking through and telling all their red blood cells what to do. Man, light, very powerful. It's principle. So then we got to get into sound. There's a lot of buzz and hums and noise, and little urchins running around the house. There's just noise. Like a little while ago, you probably heard my landscapers outside, mowing and stuff. That's all energy, explosions, boom, bouncing stuff up. How do explosions from the outside box the brain to cause it to bruise and have traumatic brain injuries? Well, because it's energy, damn it. So if you can have big ones, you can have prolonged little ones. Like dropping Visine in someone's coffee, and you'll kill them slowly over time. So you can do it with a big dose or little doses over time. It can weaken things. So you got to have quiet time. Oh, see, did that feel good to hear me shut the hell up?
That was beautiful. But no, we want you to keep going.
Okay, I got you. But see, even little pauses like that energize us, just be quiet. We don't have to stare at a phone or do that kind of fun stuff. Just go and breathe.
One question I had, Dr. Beck, because
get the light.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
One question I had was, and I want to get into the product Oral IV, and I want to get into asking you a bit more about water. But taking it back to that service member, the basic enlisted Marine soldier sailor who's in an environment where there's going to be heavy metal toxins, where we're picking up a piece of MRE pound cake to get a snack in, and our hands are covered in CLP rifle cleaning fluid, and just in this environment where I know you're not a big over exercise guy, but we're in an environment where we're humping 20 miles, we're trying to get some nutrition in. We're taking in sugar into our bodies, tons of things that could cause inflammation, surrounded by heavy metals. What should somebody who's listening to this podcast, who's between 18 and 25 right now, who lives that life, be thinking about doing to protect themselves down the line?
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, when you're out there protecting other people, you're sacrificing yourself, and we should all be grateful for it. And that is something that there is not a tangible solution. Okay. I'm not going to tell people to go packing in their own meals. So in other words, you do the best you can. You sustain life. You fight the good fight. You present that warrior spirit, and you sustain yourself on that. When you're in the absence of command and control of your food and your water and stuff like that, you can, where you recognize it, get it while you can, a quiet time. Hold your weapon up against your chest. Find you a little something to prop up against. Shift your helmet down and go quiet. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. You take that time. You breathe. You command and control your brain to go to thoughts of gratitude, thanksgiving, and love. And you know what you'll do? You will literally put on your internal armor. And it's amazingly renewing. We all know what a hug feels like. We don't have hugs that are 30 minutes. Well, you can't judge. Yeah. But the thing about it is exchanging infrared light in a hug and a caring and true embrace, you just gave each other light. Okay? So the point is, so my answer to that is probably, expected. And that's to find that quiet time and get your brain to go there and take that in. Okay? So you're going to have to do your best you can. But when you get back to base, when you get in the chow hall, don't opt for the Red Bulls and the Slim Jims. Okay? When you have the ability to do it, that's when you really now have to make the good choice, because you know you're going to foobar it when you get out there and eating them damn chiclets and little bottles of, Tabasco to make that nasty constipating peanut butter taste good. Okay? So at the end of the day, you do the best you can when you're there. But when you come back and your baseline, especially when you come off deployment, you come back home, then you got to be dead on balls right. So that's the thing. You're going to have a time when you can do it. The body, man, it is so forgiving and loving. We've all seen that. It does amazing things. So don't focus on the negative of when you're deployed and how shit the shit is, and PTing around burn pits and the damn petri dishes that you live in. Holy crap, right? But when you get home, don't live in a petri dish. That's your deal. Don't go and get, 2 for $10 through your car window from some fast food place. Put in the time and the work there, and know that your weapon, your machine is lives depend on it. And we can't be having that shit breaking down when you're eating MREs. Why? Because, so when you're at home, eat better, do better, rest. Does that make sense? So that would be my advice.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And for those of you out there who might be questioning the gratitude notion that Dr. Beck put forth, I have to say that I wish I knew more about having gratitude. I was practicing it, but not really focusing on it when I was in the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. And if I knew then what I know now, I think that my health, my happiness for the 10 years after I got out that I wasted on alcoholism and a whole bunch of other negative things would have been so much better. But I mean,
all of those are medications in their own right. We're wanting to move physiology in a way. Listen, my mom, rest in peace or whatever, she was an alcoholic. I was with her when she went and got her white chip, right? Matter of fact, ironic place, there in North Carolina, down there in Lumberton where the flood was, that exit in 17 and 19. That was actually my first job at that Ramada Inn right there, that thing, whatever. The AA, Alcoholics Anonymous place, is literally right there on the side. I was waiting to see if they would come on camera. So I had a flashback to my mom, who was a recovered alcoholic, get her what they. So I've experienced it. I know what it's like to have those kind of deals. I've worked with thousands of you guys and told those stories. But the thing about it is that it is difficult, and it's not in the training, right? Because I know even the chaplains aren't going to talk to you about going to gratitude, doing that stuff. You guys are taught to be powerful warrior machines. I ain't got time for that, right? But you do. You can, right? That's the Dan Millman, Art of the Peaceful Warrior and stuff like that. There's a lot of good stuff that you can do that, And, even martial arts know that the most proficient martial arts artists will never find enemies before him. And that's because you can choose. You got to be taught to choose. You got to be told you can choose, right? So you don't have to do that when don't have a choice when somebody's, bayonet distance away from you. Okay. So it is. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the part. Or we will continue to buy into the false bullshit narratives of the initials, PTSD and ADD and all these dumbass constructs of initials. They're all false constructs. They're not real. They don't pass the Dr. Beck coma test. I can't look at somebody and go, or do scan and go, yep, they got PTSD. You can be in a coma and we can look at your brain and go, yep, there's TBI. We can look at your hormones and go, yep, right? So in other words, things that exist just in us, we don't have to let them to perpetuate. And to avoid that, we do that by making sure that we use those times to command and control our thoughts, because you can't be angry when you have gratitude. You can't hold two emotions at one given time. It's just not possible. So to cast away the darkness, to move that stuff away, you got to do the work. And one of the ways to do that, good old Tony Robbins, stuff is change your physiology, power posturing, trauma release exercises, hands up in victory position. Your body will do that. There's nobody who would ever see you, even people in the Special Olympics, they know to raise their hands up when they hit the tape across their chest, right? We all know it. It's intrinsic. It's just like we know how to cry. We know how to, suckle. It's all built in. We all know how to proclaim victory and make our bodies feel bigger. So if you want to feel that way, be that way. So there's all these techniques. My point is that you can make your environment far more nutritive that doesn't require any pill, potion, or powder or anybody's permission. You can do it on your own. You just got to know that it's okay. It doesn't make your pecker smaller. Doesn't. Okay.
I'm living proof of that, Dr. Beck. So.
I cannot verify that through quantification.
Yeah, I mean, trust but verify, right? But everything that Dr. B is putting out here, I've now lived it and I've now walked it. And not only myself, but we've seen and put a number of other veterans through it. And the feedback that we get when somebody truly takes this into their life, when they truly understand the things that they have been deciding that's having a negative effect on their life, when they now have the power to recognize that and choose differently. This is the common thing that we hear. You saved my life. My life is so much more improved now. My wife loves to be around me. My kids can be around me. I'm working again. All these other things where they thought, they had this dis-ease. Well, it's no longer the case because looking at the whole person, putting these truths into action produces dramatic results. And again, not just my personal story. Dr. Beck's done it for thousands, and I've seen it firsthand with the veterans that we've been able to also allow him to get a hold of. And so, I mean, just internally grateful, Dr. Beck, for your knowledge, for your passion to help others, for your passion to educate, motivate, and inspire. It is inspiring.
It's great. Well, I'm humbled to do it. This is my way of giving back because I bailed. That's why I had to tell my bail story.
That is amazing. And, so many people out there have to understand that, we're told our genetics are almost like a death sentence or almost like we're marked by them for life. And I think that leads to a lot of us to believe that we have to deal with these things in a way that we can't ever control them. It's like they're imposed on us by the world. But I really like your approach to this, and I think that's absolutely amazing.
Awesome. Well, on that note, a great place to dispel that narrative is Dr. Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief. Breaks it down in scientific, non-woo-woo. Bust that all to heck, man. There is a biology of belief and what it actually does. It will blow your mind. So I want to make sure I always give good, credit where credit's due too for some of the masters that I've learned and trained with, and I can tell you that's a good one.
And Dr. Beck, you have a digital course you're working on right now?
Yeah. So what I decided to do with is force multiply. How do I do that? Because when I work one-on-one and do Skype calls and stuff like that with patients, there's only so much time in the day, right? And I could work more hours, but I'm practicing what I preach. I want to make sure I have spend time with my 3 daughters and my wife, who's 17 years younger than me.
You.
I know, right? Hey, that's what's awesome about the redo, man. That was the concluding story to the bailout. But the point is I want to live my life. I got to get grounded. I got to get naked outdoors. I got to get into my springs here in Florida. I got to get in the ocean and take in those microbiomes from the ocean, get them in my nose and my ears, and get my sunburn like I did last week kiteboarding. But, I want to get out and I want to live life. So my point is, I'm going to practice what I preach. I'm not going to burn out. So I decided, well, how about I take some of the information that is very didactic and put it into a program? So I'm actually going to be doing that. I'm in the process of laying that out to where we can actually make available a lot of the material and insight available through a learning series, through a series of about just 8 to 10 modules that takes about 8 to 10 weeks for a person to go and say, okay, well, let's learn about air. Let's learn about water and light and non-native EMF and food and how to apply that and how I can quantify it. So, yep, I'm working on a program. It's coming forthwith. It's going to be a really awesome tool for people to go back because, as you can tell, information overload. I talk real fast, and we don't always get it, especially if your brain's been boxed a couple times, and you're eating MREs and Slim Jims and Red Bulls. So you're not very ready to receive. So you can always go back to it. So that's going to be a fun endeavor. I appreciate you letting me talk.
Dr. B, where can the audience find more information about you and the work that you're doing?
Well, there's always DrAnthonyGBeck.com. That's Dr. Anthony G as in golf. Beck, Bravo Echo Charlie Kilo.com. DrAnthonyGBeck.com. Right? So you can go there. You can always friend me on Facebook, which is under the same thing. My brand is across all platforms, Dr. Anthony G. Beck, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I know you're acting like I'm not 45 or something, right?
There's an amazing video of Dr. Beck doing I think it's a Darth Maul impersonation with it looks like a Darth Maul lightsaber.
Oh, man. See, man, you guys are like investigative things, trying to figure some stuff out. That's right, man. That's
my homework on you, sir.
Well, hey, my question is, who is videotaping that? Because I know it was your wife, and you're like, do it again. How many takes did he get it?
No, actually, it was. And you know what? That's funny. That's true because we got a little good, but that was a one taker, man. That was back from my days of And yeah, so absolutely, it was. I can make it happen. Yeah, that's fun. So yeah, my wife was doing it. She's awesome sauce.
Do not mess with Dr. Beck when he has a lightsaber within reach.
So I got my little girl some and stuff. We're all Star Wars freaks around here. It's awesome. Awesome.
Dr. Beck is going to be a staple of this show. He gave a very general overview of things that are so in-depth that will be able to change your life in a positive and productive way. We're going to have him back on to take these things step by step. Light, air, sound, EMF, non-native EMF. What does that mean? We'll find out. Water, some more stuff with food.
Also, let me shamelessly plug my iTunes. They can go to a Balanced Protocol podcast, and I've got a few episodes in there too, so they can do that. So yeah, man, if you guys want to have me back, I'd love to collaborate with you. I'm always humbled and honored to do so. And if there's like questions that the audience presents to you and whatever that we want to cover. Hey man, use me. I mean, I really mean it. I mean, it's an open invitation to invite me to be a part of, you guys' glory, man. I'd be more than happy to do it.
Yeah. And again, Dr. Beck is in extremely high demand, and he's taken this time to bring this information up because he cares about the message and he cares about the audience. So again, we're just eternally grateful for you, Dr. Beck.
Absolutely. 100%. So grateful for you being on here, and thank you for taking the time for talking to us today. I know how busy you are.
Oh, no problem, guys. I love you, brothers. Appreciate all you do for us.
All right, you guys just listened to episode 21 of the Warrior Soul podcast with Dr. Anthony G. Beck. I hope you guys got something out of it. There was a whole lot of stuff in there. If you are interested in checking more out about Dr. Beck, you can check the show notes for this episode. It's going to be up on the blog at warriorsoulagoji.com and at warriorsoulfitness.com. In addition to that, we want to know what you all want to hear. If there's a particular subject, a particular problem you're dealing with, feel free to send us questions. I'm going to put a link up on the show notes for you to send us questions, or you can just send them to us over social media. We are at Warrior Soul Gear on Twitter, and we are at Warrior Soul Apparel on Instagram. Finally, we appreciate all the support we get from all of you. And we would really appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes. It's a real simple thing you can do. Doesn't cost any money. And the more reviews we get, the more we're able to spread our message. So, without delay, I want to thank you all for listening. And I will talk to you along with Andrew and one of our next guests on the next episode. See you soon.